In 1975, Japanese mountaineer Junko Tabei became the first woman in the world to climb to the summit of Mount Everest. Over the past 50 years, approximately 900 women have followed in her footsteps, defying cultural and physical barriers to reach the top of the world. My name is Tori James. I am the first Welsh woman to climb Mount Everest, and I'm on a mission to shine a spotlight on this little-known but incredible woman and celebrate this 50th anniversary milestone by sharing stories from women around the globe who have also reached to the summit of the world's highest peak. Welcome to the First Females podcast, Croeso, as we say in Wales. I am here in Kathmandu with fellow Everest Summiteer and 7 Summits Summiteer, Joe Bradshaw, and a fantastic team of women to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the first female ascent of Mount Everest by walking in the footsteps of Japanese mountaineer Junko Tabei.
I would like to welcome aboard Turkish Airlines flight to Kathmandu 321 International Airport flight.
We're here now. It'd be absolutely brilliant to get to the summit.
Time doesn't matter. Slowly is most important in mountain.
So excited now.
What a gorgeous base camp.
Just be nice to get into a rhythm so that we find our pace.
We've got just the most amazing morning for our Yala Peak summit.
We're on the summit of Yala Peak!
This is our Junko journey! Yala Peak! We have just returned from our Yala Peak expedition in the Langtang Valley, and I am now sat here with Joe Bradshaw, leader of this expedition. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Tori.
We spent the last 2 weeks together, and now we get to chat about all things First Females, and specifically the 50th anniversary of the first female ascent of Everest. I mean, firstly, I can't believe that we're in Nepal and we've just been to the Langtang Valley and we've done it. It was your idea in the first place. Tell everyone how this came about, because you have just made this happen and it has been awesome.
Yes, it's surreal actually. And I was sitting at dinner last night at the end of the table in New Orleans cafe in Tamil, and just watching the team chat, and the vibe was amazing. And even after 2 weeks together, we still have loads to chat about. That's a really special feeling to have been able to bring a group of women together who mostly knew me, and there were a couple who were friends of people who knew me, friends of friends, and friends of Adventurous You, the expedition company that created this out of my seed of an idea.
Why we're doing the trek. I was really inspired when I heard about the trip. I think any opportunities to celebrate women being in the outdoors just have to be involved in that.
And what does it mean to you to be walking in the footsteps of Junko Tabei?
Oh, well, that is just absolutely amazing to follow in someone's steps that she hasn't been given the credit and the accolades of being the first woman that she so deserves, like so many other women. And doing this is just going to highlight it, and people are going to start to sit up and take notice.
2 years ago, I knew that I wanted to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Junko's successful summit. Not that she wanted to be the first female, she just happened to be the first female on the summit of Everest. And I knew I wanted to celebrate that because few people have heard of her. Unless you're in the female circles of Everest, there's quite a few people who, when you ask them the question, who was the first female, they have no idea. And I was like, right, we need to do something about this. And what can we do? So I did a bit of research and found Yala Peak in the Langtang Valley, which also coincides, so the Junko's 50th anniversary, which is on May the 16th, also in the same year coincides with the 10th anniversary of the earthquake, which rocked Nepal on the 25th of April 2015. And I was at Camp 1 on Everest during the earthquake. And many miles away, Langtang village in the Langtang Valley was all but destroyed. 41 of 42 tea houses destroyed. 350 people thereabouts lost their lives. And I knew that I wanted to combine the two. They were both very important to me. And Yala Peak happened to be in the Langtang Valley. So I asked Adventurous U if we could put on this expedition. And originally it was going to be a D of E expedition. So 10 years ago, I took 6 gold students to do their residential. It's pretty cool residential. So we trekked to Everest Base Camp and climbed Lobuche East with a larger group of friends. And they left well before the earthquake struck, fortunately. So I wanted to recreate that D of E vibe. Unfortunately, because Yala Peak is, again, not known by anybody, only had 2 applicants. So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. How can I make this work? So we then turned it into a more commercial expedition, and I opened it up to women. And so 12 clients and your good self when you emailed me in, I think it was the 25th of September, the 29th of September last year, saying, any chance I can come too? I was like, yes, definitely. Junko is very much about opening one door at a time and living life to the full. And that's what this expedition has been about. It's 2 years of hard graft from myself, from Jim and Sue at Adventurous U, and the local company we work with here in Nepal. And it's surpassed my expectations. It's just been the most wholesome, emotional, uplifting, celebratory, commemorating, like all the adjectives. It's just been incredible. And the group have gelled beyond my wildest dreams. So that's a very long way of saying it was amazing.
And how aware of Junko were you when you were attempting your own Everest summits?
I was aware of her. The only place I could find anything out about her was on Wikipedia. The book honouring high places was published in 2017. And that was the year after I'd summited. So I went back in 2016 and summited. So there was very little information other than what's on the Himalayan database and what's on Wikipedia. And even though Junko had written some books, they were all in Japanese and not translated into English. So it was very hard to get any other information. So when Honouring High Places was published, I grabbed a copy straight away and was so inspired by her journey from a little girl who suffered from pneumonia a lot and was destined to get married and have kids and not do any of this. And it was actually the men in her life who were her greatest advocates, her father and her teacher, Mr. Watanabe, and then latterly her husband, Masanobu, who really, quite out of character for that time in Japan, very much sort of encouraged her to go and do stuff. And she has such a will and such a fire. And every time I climb or I do anything, it's not how would Junko do it, because I never met her, but it's sort of living that she just overcame so many barriers. And even though as a female in this industry and a female climber and just female in general we're still seen as a minority, even though globally we're half of the population. I am in a time where we can go and do more stuff, and it's, if she could do it back then, we have no excuse. And it's how we then go and do it, just as she did, nice and gently, having a platform, not being shouty about it, and just, proving. I do things to prove to myself that I'm capable, not to prove to anyone else. And with that comes the ripple effect. which is really important. And I've been fortunate enough to do a few talks about Junko at various events. So my curiosity about her has increased even more.
And we, of course, have been so fortunate to be able to speak to her family and friends, something I don't think either of us thought would ever happen on this journey and learning about this incredible woman in our history. It's thanks to Yala Peak expedition member and author Rosemary Brown that we were able to arrange a Zoom conversation with some of Junko's family and friends in April 2025, just before we departed on our expedition. We spoke to her husband Masanobu, her son Shinya, her friend and 1975 expedition team member Setsuko Kitamura, and her friend Yumiko Hiraki, who is also the translator of Junko's book, Honouring High Places. Much of the conversation was conducted in Japanese, and we are so fortunate that Yumiko was able to provide a live translation for us. Here are Joe Bradshaw and Rebecca Stevens, the first British woman to climb Everest, speaking to the family.
So my question is, why did she choose Yala Peak for a climb in 1977? Was there a particular reason, or is it let's just go to the mountains?
Why she chose Yala Peak? He does not know. Even Mazanov doesn't know why. Even today, he doesn't know why she chose that particular peak. And then the party was not commercial. It was a party she belonged beside Ladies Climbing Club. And at that time, for women to go overseas climbing was so rare that, to my eyes, it was a kind of rare occasion. She went the Yala Peak with mostly other men, the young men from that club. So it sounds pretty casual. Casual, just let's go to the peak, not as hard as Everest, and then it's good enough to climb and enjoy. That sounds like pretty enjoyable, casual going.
Masanobu, you clearly were the most extraordinary support for Junko. And my question is really, in Japan at that time, were you considered an unusually supportive husband? And did you consider yourself an unusually supportive husband?
He did not have a sort of clear feeling that he was very, very supportive husband compared to other husbands. What he and she kind of have deal with each other was that Tabei couples measure or standard is their own. Nothing other family or couple does not affect them. They are just doing their own thing. So if she wants to do something, supporting is just a normal thing for him. Nothing really special.
I think that's a very beautiful answer, that your relationship was one which worked together, and frankly, you couldn't care less what anybody else thought.
Speaking to one of her best friends, Setsuko Kitamura, I think Junko's positivity and determination just shines through in everything that she went on to do. And of course, it wasn't just the big summits. She climbed thousands of peaks around the world. And I think her just absolute love and joy of being in the mountains is certainly something I identify with. And she didn't want to shout from the rooftops about her achievements, and actually neither do her family, which is why what you've done through the Yala Peak expedition and what what we're talking about now is trying to sort of shine a spotlight on her and make sure her name is firmly on that map.
Definitely. I think someone in the early stages of getting sort of Team Junko together. So you, myself, and Rebecca Stevens met online after Kendall Mountain Festival last November. We met online in December, and we were like, well, so what can we do? And knew the podcast, you were doing the podcast, we knew that we were doing the expedition, and it was this lady is hidden in history. So how can we get her into the spotlight in a very gentle way as she was, and still doing it with purpose? And I'm hoping we get there, because every step of the way that we were in the Langtang Valley, we were talking about her, and to the locals and to any other trekker that happened to pass us and asked, why are we an all-female group? Which was asked quite a lot. And even back in Kathmandu, in the Kathmandu guest house, same. So, and we're not, for me personally, it's not, we haven't done this expedition to prove women can, because we know women can. The age range on this expedition has been 29 to 71, which is extraordinary. And for us, it's about proving to ourselves that we can. I think I said earlier, I don't do anything to prove to other people, because then you don't own what you've done. It belongs to someone else. And to me, that's not how I want to live my life. And I feel that Junko was the same. She went out and did it and climbed Everest, and also her previous climbs and her climbs post Everest, because she wanted to do it, not to prove anything to anyone or to be the first. She happened to be the first, like you were when you climbed Everest. You happened to be the first, and still the only. I keep banging on about this, and you're like, "Oh, shut up, Jo." And that blows my mind. That you're still you'll always be the first. You're the only Welsh woman to have climbed Everest. It's, yeah. And it's interesting when some people are sort of, oh, well, we're not bothered about the first or anything. That's fine if it's not in your world, and it does depend on what the first is and what. So you're talking to first women in their country, and that's a huge thing culturally. And it's then their platform to go and encourage other women to do it, to do not just Everest, it's finding their own Everest.
For sure. And there's a real mixture amongst the women that I've been talking to. Yes, I personally did want to become the first, and people have gone on and used that achievement in many different ways, and in many different ways for such positive good across society, which is great to see and great to be sharing widely. Let's talk about your first attempt on Everest, because it's got huge links to what we've just seen in the Langtang Valley. Firstly, I mean, Everest for you, Jo, like how did that come about in the first place? Because people who will know a little bit about you already will know that you were a business advisor. You didn't say yes to many things, and then all of a sudden you found adventure. So how did that lead to Everest?
Quite by surprise, actually. And when I do talks, I speak about being someone's champion. And also being your own champion. And it's not about the champion that you're the first or you're the winner or anything like that. It's having someone's back. It's encouraging somebody who doesn't really see something in themselves. You can see it and you can go, come on, let's try another step. And that's what happened to me. And when I got into adventure by throwing myself out of an aeroplane, having been at that time terrified of heights and exposure. Like you say, I was a no-sayer. And it was a friend of mine called Caroline who took me to the jump site. At the time saying just in case I couldn't drive home, which was a little bit scary. And actually a few years ago, I asked her about it. I was like, was that the real reason? Because I kind of felt it wasn't. And she said, we always knew you could do more. You just needed to quit the excuses and try. And it still gives me goosebumps when I say that out loud, that somebody could see something in me that I absolutely couldn't see in myself. And that parachute jump, which was for ASMA UK, led on to a bike ride in Peru, with a company called Discover Adventure, who I then went to go and work for in the office and started leading expeditions for. And that's when, in the late 2000s, my life went from corporate to adventure. And then I led an Everest Base Camp expedition where I was assistant leader with a guy called Rolf Oostra, who I then started climbing more with his company 360 Expeditions. And he then took me under his wing and mentored me. And eventually we went and climbed Everest. And I make it sound really easy, and it wasn't, because there was several 6,000 meter peaks before that, whether I was leading or as a client, and also another 8,000 meter peak called Manaslu.
And you were undeterred by what you found at high altitude?
Amazingly, I loved it. I was thinking, you know, having been a no-sayer and a sort of, my inner lazy was quite well developed, and I used to say yes to a lot of things and then back out. And what I tended to do when people said, oh, well, how about climbing this? I would come up with a list of excuses why not. And actually, when Manaslu came around, it was like, okay, how can I make this happen? If other people are making me offers to go and climb with them, they're more experienced than me, they see something in me that I don't see in myself. So maybe I need to listen a bit more. And when we did Manaslu in September 2013, it was beyond, or without doubt, the hardest thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
And I still did it.
What was hard? What did you find so hard about it?
It was a 5-week expedition. It was due to be a bit longer. We were lucky with the weather. So that's a long time out with maybe 1 or 2 showers.
Mm-hmm.
And in sort of very basic, living out of one bag. And learning how to... So I'd learned how to deal with myself at altitude on Mirapi, Aconcagua, and a few other mountains. So I had the knowledge. It was putting it all together and going above 6,000 meters, or above 7, because Aconcagua is just below 7,000 meters, and that's a big jump. So 6 to 7 is a big jump, and then 7 up is a big jump. And also knowing that I just needed to put one foot in front of the other, which is, I always say that to my clients, that's all I need to do is put one foot in front of the other, not think about what's beyond that 1 foot, or that one Jumar up a rope, ascending a rope, or, you know, one step on a ladder across a crevasse. And it was actually when I was climbing on Manaslu and we had to cross crevasses on ladders, I remember a quote from Rebecca Stevens' book, and she writes, your eyes are like a camera lens and you focus on what's important. And at the time she was talking about ladders on Everest, and that you can either think about the big gaping hole underneath your feet and what happens if I fall off, or you can zoom in and think, okay, I'm just putting one foot in front of another on the steps of the ladder, whether it's vertical or horizontal, and that I'm clipped into ropes that have been put there by the climbing Sherpas. And so I know they're safe. So all of these things build up to a really positive picture. And the only way to get from where I was to the summit was to cross them. So I had to go.
Yep.
And yeah, so when after Manaslu, because each step of the way, it was never, oh, I want to climb Everest, so I need to do all of these things. It was, oh, well, let's just see what's next. And then I remember finishing Manaslu September 2013, and it wasn't probably until the beginning of 2014 that Rolf said, oh, we're putting an Everest expedition together and I think you should be on it, which is easy to say when you're not paying for it. And so I was like, oh, okay, let's see. And it was interesting talking to some friends about it, because they always said, well, we knew it would be when, not if. Whereas that hadn't been in my head. People like me didn't do it. I was in my mid-40s at the time. You know, I'd only been in adventure for 6 years, 7 years. I'd learned a lot and was guiding well at that point, leading expeditions, loads of them, and had learnt so much about the physiology of climbing at altitude and group dynamics at altitude. So it was just sort of all putting it together, really. So yeah, we went out at the beginning of April 2015 with a group, trekked to base camp, climbed Low East with a part of the team. Everybody left, and then Rolf and I headed up to base camp. Arrived there on the 15th of April, and when you're at base camp, in order for you to climb higher and go up to Camp 1, you need to have a puja, which is also what you had, which is a religious blessing for safe passage on the mountain. It's not a blessing of you will summit, it's safety on the mountain. And we had our puja on the 21st, and then the icefall doctors needed to fix the ropes properly and get all the logistics higher up needed to be done before we went. And in that time, Rolf and I had been up and down through certain sections of the icefall, just getting ourselves used to the environment, because it's quite an intimidating environment. Massive blocks of ice that can fall over at any time, really big crevasses with lots of ladders across. Yeah, it can be very intimidating if you let it. And then on the 25th, well, actually on the 24th of April, we knew that we were going to go up higher. And quite randomly, another guide in the team, we were in a base camp collective, said, right, we need to have the death chat. I was like, oh, okay. Wasn't expecting this, because Rolf and I had already discussed it. But as a larger team, we kind of needed to know in case both of us had issues. And so I said, leave me there, throw me down a crevasse. I don't want anyone else to be put in a position of danger, because I've been silly enough to die, whatever it is, whether I've fallen off or had serious altitude sickness or what have you. And then at 4 o'clock the next morning, we were heading our way up through the icefall. Said goodbye to our Sherpa team, of our crew, a couple of them were staying at base camp. One was going to come up to Camp 2 a couple of days' time to be our Camp 2 cook. Said goodbye to them, see you in a few days, and off we went. We had a really good climb up. It was a bit busy, as it always is, and the weather was quite moody. So the sun, even though the sun obviously comes up every day, but for us, we were lucky because it wasn't really hot. And when it gets hot in the icefall, things move really quickly and you roast. So you've got lots of kit on. So it was quite cloudy. It was snowing a little bit. And then we arrived at Camp 1 at about 11:20 or something like that, around that time. And I remember, because we were sharing tents with a team that had gone up to Camp 2, or on their way up to Camp 2 at the time. So Rolf and I just chucked our bags in a tent, and then I went into the tent, and there was a big dip in the tent where bodies had just sort of warmed up the snow a bit, and because two of us are sharing, we definitely wanted a flat platform. So I was in the tent and Rolf was in the porch, and we were just passing stuff into another tent because we had quite a few to choose from at the time, and chatting away. And then suddenly we just both stopped talking and just looked at each other and like, oh, this is a bit weird. Because when you're mountaineering in avalanche prone areas, you get used to hearing out for avalanches. Where are they? How big is it? Do I need to move quickly? Am I going to be safe? All of these things. And this was different. It was a rumbling coming from all around us, 360. And usually when you're at Camp 1, it's sandwiched in between Nuptse and the west shoulder of Everest. So you know one side or another, things may come down. But front and back, you're looking up or down the valley. So sounds shouldn't come from there. And then the ground underneath us just, woof, dropped. And it was, little did we know it then, but it was the first wave of the earthquake. And because we had a dip in the tent, I thought a crevasse was opening up. And I was going to get sucked down a crevasse wrapped in a tent with Rolf and die, and that is not how I wanted to die. It's not on my agenda. So we rushed out of the tent and we were avalanched from both sides. And what happens is when an avalanche starts, you get a big wind blast. And this blast of wind was coming up through the Khumbu icefall, which was also very odd. So all of it was just, our brains were trying to make sense of stuff in such microseconds, and it just wasn't happening. So we were then avalanched, and the ground was shaking violently, and then suddenly it just stopped. It was so bizarre. And Rolf and I, and then Rob Castley, his wife MK, and his client Dan and I were all together, and we were like, what was that? That was really weird. We thought the glacier had a big shift. And then we had a radio chat with Henry, our base camp manager. And he said, are you guys okay? And we were like, well, yeah, but what's gone on? And he said, there's been a massive avalanche at base camp, and 3 of our guys are dead. 3 of our team were dead. Or at that time, two were found dead and 1 was missing, and then later found dead. And it was just this sort of moment in time where you just think, this isn't happening. Where you think, this was not on my life's TV, although a lot of it never is. And those guys we said goodbye to in the morning, they're never going to see their families again. And it really made me realise how important it is to thank people. And to genuinely care for them, because they were on the mountain for us and they lost their lives for us. And I know they were working, and it would have been anybody. We happened to be with them. And Henry said that the guys had died. Henry had broken his hand. Our base camp cook Bim, had damaged his arm, and everyone was okay. And then I grabbed our satellite phone and I shoved it in Rolf's hand, and I was like, you must ring Marnie, his wife, and please get her to phone my mum on her mobile, because my parents were abroad at the time, because I didn't want my mum finding out from the TV. And she when we spoke about it a bit later, she turned on BBC News, and the ticker tape at the bottom had come across saying earthquake in Pokhara. My mum was like, oh, well, that's miles away from Everest. So she said, oh yeah, Joanna will be fine. And then Marnie rang her and said, Joe's fine. I was like, what? So yeah, and I managed to speak to my mum a couple of days later on mobile. Yeah, so we were up there for a couple of days wondering how we were going to get down. We knew that we couldn't go back down through the icefall because the ladders had been destroyed, and also there were aftershocks constantly. So there was a big one, a 6.9, which is still an earthquake. 24 hours later, there'd been one 12 hours and sort of constant little rumble. So it wasn't safe. There was 100 of us at Camp 1 and there was another 80 up at Camp 2. So trying to get everybody out through the icefall would have just been too dangerous. So, and then the helicopters started coming, and to evacuate the dead and injured from base camp. 19 people died at base camp. I don't know how many were injured actually. Everest ER, the hospital there, was destroyed. So yeah, it was quite a...
Yeah, Joe, thank you for sharing that. I'm feeling the fear just sat here talking to you, and I know 10 years on it's still a challenging experience.
Yeah, it is. And it was interesting because yesterday we came back on the 25th of April. We came back from the famous farm at Nuwakot, which is halfway in between the Langton Valley and Kathmandu. And that had been badly damaged in the earthquake and had been rebuilt. And you could see all the new pointing and the new building with all the old bricks. And it's so beautiful, and it was such an oasis. And then I knew coming back to Kathmandu, for me it was so important that we were on our way back yesterday, rather than anywhere else, so that I can just make peace with it, and also commemorate those who lost their lives and celebrate life. When we were in Kanjengompa a couple of days before we summited Yala Peak, I had a really good chat with the tea house owner there, Jangbu, who had a tea house in Langtang. And on the 25th of April, 10 years ago, he had left in the morning to go and trek up the valley with some clients, and his wife and children had gone down the valley to go to school, so they weren't in their tea house. And I was saying to him that I do still sometimes struggle as to why so many people lost their lives and why we were spared. And he said he understood, because he feels the same. He lost his cook and some clients. They were buried in the avalanche in Nangtang, and he said, "Didi, this is life." And he is so true. This is life. And I think it took quite a long time to it's not even coming to terms with, but it's processing what had happened, and that life can be taken away from you so fast for a million different reasons. And that for me, it's about getting the most out of every single day, whether that's resting at home with my dog Monty, doing some gardening, working on my van, or guiding in the mountains. Is, have I done justice to this day? Because somebody will never be able to live this day. And that's so important for me.
And it was incredibly poignant, visiting Langtang as part of this incredible Yala Peak expedition. I remember being back in the UK and hearing the news of the earthquake, and it was actually just a week or so before my husband and I got married, and we were just able to play a very small part and ask for donations actually at our wedding to hopefully support some of the rescue efforts or rebuilding efforts out here. But actually trekking in the Langtang Valley this last week or so and seeing what had happened to Langtang village and the surrounding area was incredibly sad. And it was lovely to have just the time together with our wonderful guide Kumba and the rest of the team to have those moments to reflect and stand in silence and just remember.
I say to clients sometimes, if you think something's going to be massive, it will be massive. So like when we're climbing, if you think it's going to be hard, it will be hard. And I've been planning this for 2 years, and it's kind of been in the back of my mind of, I wonder how I'm going to be when I get to Langtang village. And because even though I was in a totally different part of Nepal, and what happened there was the same but different to base camp. Many, many more died. It was a village, it was a community. They were just going about their day in a normal way, whereas we were climbing a mountain. And it was kind of a bit of a release when I got there. I was absolutely fine until we started walking across where the village had been, and there was a memorial, and there was big gabion walls. And I just broke down. So, this is hard. So I'm currently walking across where Langtang village was, and it was destroyed at 11:56, and thereafter on the 25th of April 2015, whilst I was on Camp 1 fighting for my life. And it's really weird being in a gravesite, and we're here to respect those that have lost their lives across Nepal, and here in particular 10 years ago. So yeah, I'm so very grateful. I need to do life justice because they didn't have the chance. It was very emotional. And coming back through, when we came back down and we had lunch at Jangbu's tea house, and I managed to get a little bit of time just to look and to appreciate what had happened and where the avalanche had come down, because you can see the scarring on the cliff face, and how resilient the Nepalese are, and that they've rebuilt next to and commemorate those that were lost and get on with their lives. And how, talking to Jangbu and seeing the photos, he showed me the photos, and hearing his story, it was truly humbling. Really, really humbling. And they live there all the time. So they're reminded of it all the time, and they got on with it. This is life, Dee. This is life.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how did you then make the decision to want to go back to Everest the following year?
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to be sponsored for 2015 Everest, and I was raising funds for children and mental health charity Place to Be, and still am. And I remember we were helicoptered from Camp 1 down to base camp 2 days after, so on a Monday morning. And Rolf and I started digging to try and clear up and to see if we could find any kit. It was an absolute bomb site. So our camp was in the middle of the middle third that was avalanched. So we were digging for kit, and then on the Tuesday afternoon, we were like, right, we're done now. And I'm like, just a bit more, always just a bit more. And I dug down randomly in a place and found my mobile phone.
Oh.
Yeah, really bizarre. This one tiny thing, I think it was an iPhone 7 at the time or something, and it was in a Mophie battery pack case, which I think saved it. And I sat on a rock and turned it on, and it was a sunny day, and it warmed up, and it worked. And all these text messages came through, and I'd already spoken to my mum on someone else's mobile. And the text message came through from my sponsor, so I could message him back, and it was the most bizarre conversation. And he said, would you go back? And I said yes, because it wasn't anything that we did to stop our climb. Mother Nature had a seriously bad day, and it was terrifying. And I owe it to myself and also to put money back in the community. If I can go back, I will go back. And he said, fine, go back. 2016. I mean, I never expected to be sponsored 1 year, let alone 2 years. It was the biggest gift ever. It also meant that I could continue raising money for Place to Be and to finish something that we'd started, whatever that finish was going to be. And I owed it to myself and those that were around me to give it the best shot. So April 2016, there we were back again. How bizarre. And it was quite edgy. The feeling at base camp was quite edgy. In 2014, the season had been cancelled because there was a big avalanche in the Khumbu icefall, which had killed 16 Sherpas. And then 2015, the earthquake. So 2016, there was a kind of a bit of an edge to the atmosphere. And we were due to go up to Camp 1 on the 25th of April, and we started climbing up, and we'd left base camp a bit late, and neither Rolf and I were we were a bit just off. Not off with each other, but it just felt a bit off. And we got to the bottom of the fixed lines. And I said to him, this just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel respectful to be climbing today. And I don't want to go. So we came back, and Rolf went off and spent the day with some of his climbing friends. And I spent it in base camp, just having some quiet time. And that felt right. And then on the 26th, we started our acclimatization rotations, and then summited on the 19th of May. Who would have thought? A week later than we were meant to. Right. A storm had blown in, and we've got on our first summit attempt, we climbed up to Camp 3, 7,000 meters, and we were going to Camp 4 the next day and then summit. And then we were told at Camp 3 by Henry, really sorry, it's a big storm coming in. You've got to come down. I was like, oh,
again.
We went all this way up and then come all the way back down to base camp. And we did, and better food, better water, bucket shower, get yourself ready again. Similar to you in your in your experience similar for different reasons? Just get yourself sorted, get yourself in a good place, and then we went up and summited on the 19th of May.
How do you get yourself in a good place for what some people might describe as a pressurized situation where you've got potentially one chance? Is there anything you do you think?
It was really interesting because when we went back up to Camp 2, I wasn't in a good place. And Rolf and I we were just bickering. We had quite an argument, and it was the pressure. You know, it was like this pressure release. And I was sat in my tent, and I have two characters that sit on my shoulders. So negative Nelly on my left shoulder and positive Polly on my right. And Nelly in my head was going, you can't do this. You're the only woman here and no one thinks you can do it. And you've already been told that you're not good enough, and been bullied and belittled and by a few people on the mountain, and they don't think you can do it. And why are you here? You don't deserve it. And all this stuff in my head. And then I had the place to be, I had my banner in front of me with photos of loved ones and everyone that had sponsored me and the place to be logo. I'm like, these guys are going to help me get to the top. So Positive Polly kicked in and was like, you've earned your place here. You've done another 8,000. You've put in the hard work. You're fit enough. You are definitely capable. Go and do it. And it was then that, I think, that took me further up. And I've replaced Negative Nelly with Challenging Charlie now. Because those voices are valid and need to be listened to. I kind of needed that. And then for the positive stuff to come in and go, okay. And it's pros and cons. It's like writing a pros and cons list for whatever. When I bought my last van, I found a pros and cons list of the lady that had had it before, of whether she should be with her boyfriend or not. So it's the same thing, you know, pros and cons. And then I remember when we were at the South Col, just before we started going up on our climb, it was 8:30 at night on the 18th of May. And I climb, if I'm, not when I'm leading, but if I'm doing personal climbs, I have the music in one ear and the other ear is open to listen to what's going on around me. And the Black Eyed Peas came on with Tonight's Going to Be a Good Night. And Dorji, my climbing Sherpa, said, Dee Dee, you've got this. Just go at your own pace and all will be good. So off we went. And it was a busy night because 2 days worth of summiting climbers were squidged into one because the weather had been bad the day before. And it was a busy night and it took us a long time. And we got there 6:45 a.m. and it was amazing.
What did you do? Did you do it?
Sat down. Sat down and went, oh, thank God. And it was busy. So we had to be really careful because when you get to the top, you come off the fixed lines and it's a long way down to Tibet or Nepal.
It is.
It is a very long way down. So and it's also, for me, and it's something I said to all my clients on Yala Peak and whichever peak I do is save some energy for the way down. And they're like, well, how do we know? I'm like, you keep that adrenaline going in your head. And you've got to make sure that you've eaten along the way. And I was just, because trying to eat anything with an oxygen mask on was hard. So every time we sort of stopped, popped a jelly baby in my mouth underneath my mask. And that sort of got me to the top and back. Yeah, we were up there 15 minutes. And I remember looking across at seeing the curvature of the earth and looking across at Makalu, which is a beautiful mountain, another 8,000er, and also at Lhotse, because we were meant to be climbing Lhotse straight after Everest. And a friend of ours was on the way up at the time. And then when we arrived back at Camp 4 at the South Col, we had a radio call from Henry and said, I'm really sorry, but Lhotse is off. A Sherpa had been injured and sadly died on the mountain. So climbing, out of respect, climbing was off, which is totally understandable. So we came all the way back down to Camp 2 at 6,400 metres. That was hard.
Wow.
Yeah, really hard. And it's not like, it's not over until you're back down safe. And then so that was 19th, 20th. We were back at base camp.
And how did you feel at base camp?
Well, it was the only time I fell over. We got back to base camp and we passed crampon points. We took our crampons off, and I was walking with a friend, and it was I just stood on a really icy bit, and that was it. I was on my backside.
Oh no!
Kevin was like, 47 days we've been here, and you haven't fallen over, and now you do it. I'm like, yeah, always. It's not over until you're off. Yeah, it was a bit surreal because it's a massive thing, and it's not just being on the mountain. So it'd taken us 45 days to ascend from Lukla with the walk up, and we did 2 6,000-meter peaks on the way as acclimatization, and then, because why not? And then it took us 2 days to get off.
Mm.
And so on the 21st, we helicoptered out to Lukla, and then the 22nd, we were back in Kathmandu. And if I was to have my time again, and hindsight's a wonderful thing, I would have walked out.
Right.
Yeah. Because on Manaslu, we walked out, and as hard as it was, because you're absolutely exhausted, it gives you decompression time. And it didn't get that. And I remember getting back to Kathmandu, back in the guest house. I was in the room above where we sat at the moment, and I slept for a full day.
Yeah.
I was just absolutely exhausted, and then I ate a lot of green vegetables.
Yeah.
Crunchy stuff. Yeah, it's quite something.
And we're now sat here, and you are a 7 summits Summiteer, Jo, which has taken you how long from start to finish?
So from start to finish, and it was actually PhD, the down clothing.
The Hutchinson Designs?
Yeah, Pete Hutchinson Designs, who I wear all their down kit on all cold mountains I do. And they've been massive supporters. So they wrote a lovely blog, and they said 17 years from start to finish. And it was 17. So from when I first climbed Kilimanjaro in 2008 as assistant leader, and hadn't even thought of the 7 summits then. I probably didn't even clock what they were, because I was never going to climb Everest or anything higher than Kilimanjaro.
And I do have to mention that, I mean, I find this unbelievable. You are about to go and climb Kili for the 40th time.
Yeah. So this time next year, with the best will in the world, touching wood, I will have climbed Kili 40th time on my 55th birthday on International Women's Day.
Hurrah.
Hurrah. Places are available.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so it wasn't until after Everest that the 7 summits became a thing for me. So I climbed Kilimanjaro 2008 working. I did Aconcagua 2011 for play as a client. Then after Everest 15 was aborted because of the earthquake, I did Elbrus in Russia. And then went back to Everest 2016. And then my sponsor, who was for Everest, he said to me, "What's next?" I thought we were going to be like, "Thank you very much, that's it." He was like, "I would love for you to carry on raising the profile of Place to Be and raising some funds." So I proposed 7 summits because big bunny ears here, only had 3 to do. So I did Denali in 2017, a year, a month and a day to when I summited Everest. That was quite cool. It's my favourite one yet.
Oh.
And then unfortunately my sponsor pulled out, so Carsten's started being delayed and delayed and delayed. So the beginning of January 2018 was when unfortunately he had to end our sponsorship, and my father had just passed away, so I gave it a year to concentrate on me and my mum, and then started raising sponsorship myself and doing more fundraising in 2019. And then we were meant to go out, there was a small team of us that were meant to go out end of September 2019, and 24 hours before we were due to fly from the UK, West Papua, where Carsten's Pyramid is, was closed due to civil unrest. we were then rescheduled to February 2020, and even before COVID became, a serious thing, that one was cancelled because the civil unrest had kicked off again. And then, so that was number 3. And then number 4 cancellation was July last year. So the mountain was open again. It's going to be open in October. And I booked on with a local agent, and then they moved the dates by 3 days, and I had a massive chunk of work that I just, some people are like, oh, just forget work. It's like, I have a mortgage to pay and bills to pay, and I've got, I have a life to lead. So had to cancel that, and then booked on for March this year. And then 10 days before we were due to fly, it was cancelled again. I was like, that was number 5 or 6, I'm not quite sure. And then finally we went out and stood on the summit 21st of March, 7:45 a.m. Hurrah!
Amazing. And it's the smallest, isn't it?
It is the smallest.
The 7.
It's the lowest, takes the least amount of time, is the most complicated. And the furthest to fly anywhere. And then, we flew from the UK all the way to West Papua. So where did we go? Through Dubai, and then to Jakarta, and then to Makassar, which is on South Sulawesi, and then to West Papua. So I'm not proud of my miles on that one. And then you helicopter from Timika up to the mountain base camp, which is where you stay.
And which is at quite an altitude.
Yeah, it is 4,280 metres.
Yes,
from sea level.
Yeah, that's not very pleasant to go straight in at that.
Really, no. And then, so we had a day's rest to get over all the flying. And then we went for a little acclimatisation walk. And I say we, there was myself, Dan, who was on Everest 2015 with me. We shared the earthquake, which is a bizarre thing to say. And our guide, Robin, and our local team. All the other teams had finished their expeditions, had flown out, so there was only us at base camp, which was an absolute gift. So we had base camp to ourselves, and we had the route and the summit to ourselves, which, as we know from Yala Peak, which we pretty much did the same, is an absolute gift.
It is, isn't it?
It just very rarely happens unless you're in the wilds of somewhere where no one else is going. It was an absolute gift. And yeah, it rains a lot. So Carson's Pyramid is sort of a little ridge of rock, a ridge of mountains above the jungle. So mainly in the afternoon, when the heat comes up from the jungle, you get all the rain from that. And our first summit day was meant to be on the 20th. It started raining at 2:30 in the morning when we were due to have breakfast and then go at 3. And it rained for 16 hours or something like that. So we were like, right, we're not going then, because the route turns into a waterfall.
Right.
And it's a rock route up to a ridgeline, and then you go across the ridgeline to the summit, going up a little bit, all on fixed rope, fixed lines. And then the following day, we just had the most perfect day. Climbed up through the clouds onto the ridge. So we were sat above the clouds on the ridge. Went along the ridge line, which is quite airy, across a steel, we call it a bridge, but it's 1 steel cable for your feet and 2 either side for your arms. And there were 3 notches, so you have to do a sort of step of faith. Even though you're clicked on, it's a long way down either side. And then you get up to the summit. And we spent, I think, half an hour up there just chilling and just going, we've done it. And it was Dan's 6th of the 7.
Right.
So he has Vincent to do. So it was really lovely to share that for both of us, having been through the earthquake and had history.
Of course.
Which was cool. And our guides were amazing. Our local guides were amazing. Such John and Joe.
And of course, you share that 7 Summits title with Junko. She was the first woman to do the 7 summits.
Yeah.
And another.
I know.
Yeah.
And very different in her time. They would have trekked in through the jungle for 6 days, which you can't do now because of rebel activity. And what a different journey that would be. Yeah. So it was such a privilege to stand on top and know that she'd been there.
Mm.
And the same with Yala Peak and Everest. If I'd known more about her then, it would have been a different journey for me.
Mm.
What an inspiration.
I certainly stood on top of Yala last week and thought, wow, she must have had a great time exploring these mountains.
And seeing the photos that were given by her husband and her son, that it was completely snowed over for her, and they were up there with ice axes and crampons, and it was all rock for us, having been quite snowed the day before, and some of it had disappeared. What an amazing achievement. And hardly anybody would have been trekking in the Langtang. They did a slightly different route to base camp, which I'm still trying to work out on a map. And we have our diaries, which we are getting translated.
She was brilliant at writing diaries, a skill that I really envy, actually. So I can't wait to see some of those translations. And of course, we have documented the whole of our journey. You in particular are brilliant about writing about your experiences. And I know that you have a website if people want to follow you and find out more about what you're up to.
Absolutely. So my website is jobradshaw.co.uk. I have a lot of blogs to write about this expedition, and so much to say about it. And I haven't really had a chance to celebrate the 7 summits yet, because that was sort of 2 weeks before we came out here. So it's all been quite full on in a really good way. And I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn and Facebook. So I'm easy to find, and links through my website are there. And I just want to say, I am so glad you sent me that email September last year, because it's added a whole different dimension. And for our amazing group to listen to us chatting and comparing notes about Everest and all the stuff on the bus, I heard you talking to Viv about your polar challenge and all of this. It just adds so much flavour to our already amazing group, who have so much different experiences of being in the mountains or new to the mountains.
Well, I mean, the way that you've pulled the group together, Jo, has just been brilliant. Not just before we left, but in our training weekend in the Brecon Beacons, of course.
Yeah.
How you set the scene and got everybody ready for the challenge ahead was inspirational. I've certainly learned a lot from you over the last couple of weeks.
Everything in my head will tell me I can't do it, and I shouldn't be here, and I'm going to let people down.
I've experienced a summit night, and I've seen the mountains, and I wish good luck to everybody else who's going further up. But for me, this is my summit, and I'm cool with this.
So hard, picking your way through rocks, and the cold, the breathing, and the aching legs.
Oh my God, nearly there.
Your help in getting up that rocky face, that was horrendous.
I think this is the highest I've ever been.
One step at a time gets you to the top. Junko!
We're on the summit of Yala Peak!
This is our Junko journey! Yala Peak!
It's been an amazing trip. It's going to take me some time to process it, sort through the photos, some incredible video footage that we will be sharing far and wide with people over the coming months. Thank you so much for talking to me, and a big thank you for the last 2 weeks. It's been incredible. It's been my return to Nepal after 18 years, which has been just...
First time at altitude for 18 years?
The highest that I've been in 18 years, and think I've just about still got what it takes.
Definitely.
So that's just been tremendous. Reignited my passion for a bit of high altitude adventure. So thank you so much for talking to me today, for initially putting together the Yala Peak expedition, responding to my email. And it doesn't stop here, because of course we are going to be talking to each other for the rest of this year and beyond, to ensure that more people know about Junko, her achievements, and how so many more people can have their own Junko journeys, whatever that might be, so that people can get outside and benefit from adventure in a whole host of different ways.
Yes.
Since returning from Yala Peak in April, a very special project has unfolded. We have been able to make a documentary film about our journey. It's called More Than a Mountain. This is more than we ever could have hoped for, and we're particularly grateful to the Kendal Mountain Festival for dedicating the opening night of the festival to Junko Tabei and celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first female ascent of Mount Everest. More Than a Mountain is produced by Wild Valley Media, and in particular we'd like to thank the sponsors of the film, York St John University and Adventurous U. This project has only been possible though because of the support of over 100 of you that have donated to our crowdfunding campaign. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We hope you enjoy it, and to find out where else you'll be able to watch the film, please follow @MoreThanAMountain on Instagram.
One of my favourite Junko quotes is when she was putting together the team for Everest, all-female team, she had many women say, "I would love to do Everest, but ... And I forget her exact words. It was along the lines of she found it very disappointing when people slashed their dreams with the simple words, but. And we've kicked the butt out of this expedition and the butt out of our lives.
Yes.
Yeah. So we hope that other people can do the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jo, thank you so much, and a huge thank you to all of my listeners on this First Females podcast. It's been a very special episode, sitting here in the centre of Kathmandu, having just returned from the incredible Langtang Valley. I'd love to get your feedback, and I would be so grateful if you could take the time to review or rate this podcast, or drop me a message on my socials @Tori James Everest. To finish, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Sam Beaumont and Loz Henshaw at Wild Valley Media for editing this episode. Thanks also to Hugh James for the loan of recording equipment, which I took to Nepal, and to Bethan Lee. Your help, expertise and support in bringing this podcast to the world has been exceptional. Until next time, let's honour the courage and determination of Junko and the women who have climbed before us. Dream big and climb high. Hwyl fawr, goodbye.